Stacey Abrams in increasingly a whole lot of trouble here, and it's in part, shall we say, self-inflicted. This is self-inflicted because you see Stacey went on to that lovely little network that works for the Democrat Party, MSNBC or MSDNC as some like to call it. Anyway, she went on the network and she started talking about that $2 billion that she was given in that sort of, I guess, what would you call it, an NGO that they were putting in place for climate change initiatives, and she went out and spent the money on new appliances for people to show and prove how you could use green energy. But the concern now, and this is coming from Lee Zeldin at EPA, the concern is that Stacey may have actually been trying to buy votes. And she may have been using your taxpayer dollars to do it. Just to familiarize you again with who she is, this is the woman who was praised by the New York Times when she didn't win governor of Georgia, and they put her on a New York Times cover, and they were proud of her, and she refused to give up the race, and she refused to concede, and somehow that was admired, just to kind of point out the double standard going on. Anyway, Stacey Abrams now in big trouble, under fire for this. Lee Zeldin coming out and saying he has announced an investigation that the DOJ and the FBI are all looking into this after she went on to MSNBC and said the following. Listen very carefully.
One of the ironies of the attack on you, and I'm going to play what he did, was that my understanding is the program at the source of this whole thing is a program to lower costs for people. Do I have that top line correct?
You have it absolutely right.
Okay, so I'm gonna play what he had to say, and then I'm gonna ask you to explain what the program is that was such an obvious, ludicrous laugh line for the Republicans there. Take a listen.
$1.9 billion to recently created Decarbonization of Homes Committee, headed up, and we know she's involved. Just at the last moment, the money was passed over by a woman named Stacey Abrams. Have you ever heard of her?
Okay, so what is this organization? What is your relation to it, and what does it do?
In 2023 and 2024, I led a program called Vitalizing DeSoto. We worked in a tiny town in South Georgia to demonstrate that by replacing energy inefficient appliances with efficient appliances, you can lower your cost. And in fact, we accomplished that. For 75% of the community, they got appliances that are lowering their bills right now. We had one woman who saw her electric bill cut in half from $180 to $98. That's what we delivered. And based on that program, a coalition of organizations, famous organizations, came together and said to the EPA, if we can do this here, we can do this for millions more Americans. Let us invest the money of America in lowering the cost for Americans. And the EPA said, okay, great, go for it.
EPA said, great, go for it. So now, Lee Zeldin, in a statement to Fox, made just within the last 24 hours, said that he's very concerned because you're talking about $2 billion in taxpayer revenue that was used in 2024, quite conveniently, just in 2024, by a group of very unqualified people. In other words, these were people that were not very familiar with, say, how to run an organization like this. I mean, they even had to have a how to develop a budget training seminar. They were so unqualified, according, again, to one Lee Zeldin, who told Fox, quote, $2 billion in hard-earned tax dollars should not have been doled out to this organization for many reasons, especially if they don't even know how to put together a budget. The Biden EPA Gold Bar scheme is riddled with self-dealing and conflicts of interest, unnecessary middlemen, unqualified recipients, and massively reduced government oversight. The funds are currently frozen, and DOJ and FBI are investigating. So the question becomes then, is this a criminal investigation? We know that they're investigating. If it's a criminal investigation, then she's going to find herself in a whole lot of trouble. In other words, you can't just take taxpayer dollars and use it or repurpose it to quote unquote buy votes, which is what they fear may have really been going on here in more ways than one, right? This is very widespread. You got all these NGOs that are operating. You've got USAID, which Marco Rubio just came out early this morning and said we're ending 83% of that stuff. Zeldin's response, of course, followed what we heard just now out of Stacey Abrams. She went on to MSNBC and basically admitted that they gave out all this money. $2 billion was being granted to a group called Power Forward Communities. So a lot of concerns that there was some pretty shady stuff going on, and it was all sort of in the name of, well, we can't let Donald Trump win. Under no circumstances can Donald Trump win. I mean, Donald Trump might actually just cut off the spigot, if you would, for all this wonderful, great money flow we got going on. And we're talking about a lot of money, guys, a lot of money. I mean, billions and billions and billions of dollars, hundreds of billions when you add all this up, and then you factor in, say, Ukraine, et cetera. You factor in all the NGOs, you factor in USAID, and you got yourself one giant mess. But as I always say, you know what, you got to follow the money. So now all these things are getting exposed. And Trump's going after him. I mean, he's really going after him, and he's like, it's not going to happen. You're not going to use taxpayer dollars, hard-earned taxpayer dollars, to go and fund these ridiculous projects to just keep your people in charge. And so this is all coming out right now. For example, this one right here, this was amazing. You had these pop-up, we can call them pop-up companies, pop-up NGOs. Truly amazing, guys, because you didn't really have to have sort of any real qualifications to get these things going. This is Climate United Fund. I'm just showing you the tax return here. If you're looking at the screen of a pop-up NGO shell like Climate United, where you had Biden's EPA chief, Michael Regan, along with Kamala Harris. Michael Regan, no relation to Trish Regan, thank you very much. He gave $7 billion total to this suddenly created, I mean, that's the most ever, okay, Climate United Fund. And it happened in spring of 2024, April 2024. Do you think that time is just a little bit peculiar? I do. It launched just 5 months earlier in November of 2022 when its tax return showed it had a little tiny $547,000 worth of revenue. And it spent $451,000 of that $547,000 in just 2 months in 2023, a quarter of that on legal fees, the majority of the $323,000 mysteriously going to, well, people don't know because the tax returns don't actually say. So this is $7 billion in your tax money that's going to various places, various states, including this Power Forward Communities that was linked to one Stacey Abrams. So, this is obviously major concern. I know they're investigating it right now, but I'm just looking at this saying, I think that there's more there. And this is likely going to, in my estimation, turn into some kind of criminal investigation because you're taking people's money, repurposing it for political purposes. You're doing it to keep a particular administration in charge. Here's Jesse Waters, my former colleague at Fox, on the subject just the other night.
Found that when Biden announced he was giving out money to fight climate change, Democrats and donors with ties to Biden and Obama lined up for grants. Some of them even formed new nonprofits right after they heard about the climate cash. Stacey Abrams was hired by a group called Rewiring America. Then they were awarded $500 million in taxpayer money. Ari Matsuiak is the CEO of that same organization. He worked in the Obama administration and donated thousands to Kamala. Beth Baffert is the CEO of the Climate United Fund, which got $7 billion of your money. $7 billion. Beth worked for the Obama campaign and White House earlier in her career, but told Primetime there's no relationship between Climate United and any political party. I'm sure of it. Richard Kaufman also worked for Obama, and he's a big-time donor, big time. He sent over $500,000 to Democrats. He got a good return on his investment, though. His group, Coalition for Green Capital, got $5 billion. Oh, but they say they're nonpartisan. The Opportunity Finance Network was awarded more than $2 billion. Their CEO, Harold Pettigrew, who got the job months before the grant's application went public, worked under Biden. If you want to get rich quick, start a nonprofit.
Basically, the government-funded NGOs are a way to do things that would be illegal if they were the government, but are somehow made legal if it's sent to a so-called nonprofit. But these nonprofits are then used to, people cash out these nonprofits. They become very wealthy through nonprofits. They pay themselves enormous sums through these nonprofits.
And how many NGOs?
I think there's a total number of NGOs, probably millions, but in terms of large NGOs, tens of thousands.
If Democrats were really concerned about climate change, why are they funneling cash to all their friends instead of just sending it directly to solar and wind companies? These people can't figure out how to run a company even with free money. Biden gave a solar panel company, Sunnova, a $3 billion loan. And now they say they're about to go bankrupt. Why'd Sunnova get the check? Well, it doesn't hurt that Sunnova's director served on a board with the head of Biden's energy loan program. Joe basically made a big mess giving our money to his friends and didn't lower the Earth's temperature a smidge. Now it's time for the Trump team to prosecute graft and get us a refund.
Yes. Okay, yes. And so that's where Stacey comes in. That's where a whole lot of people, you heard him mention a whole bunch of big donors to the Democrat Party. It's like, okay, if you have a friend in the Democrat Party close to power, if they know Kamala, you might be able to get this green energy windfall. I mean, this is an insane amount of money, guys. Again, this is the largest we've ever seen on record, $7 billion, two of it going to one Stacey Abrams. That is messed up. That is messed up. And things, we thank Doge for the work they're doing on this, and it's got to get exposed. I mean, you shouldn't be relying on government so heavily. This is something that came out actually in my friend Maria Bartiromo's interview with Donald Trump over the weekend. And he was basically pointing out we shouldn't have an economy that is so reliant on government, right? If you do that, what are you? What are you? You're communist, you're socialist, you might as well be the USSR. If the government is the one controlling everything, picking the winners and losers, giving out $7 million, billion with a B that they've taken effectively from Stalin. I mean, if you ask me, that's stealing our money if you're then pouring it back into your political cronies, causes to nowhere. And that stuff has got to stop.